Hey, everybody, how's it going? This is Rob Turley, your host of Down the Rabbit Hole podcast, or hashtag DTRH podcast. Great to be here. I am also known as the RevOps Hitman. That's a different story for a different time. But yeah, fantastic to have someone like Adem on the call with me today. Incredible stuff that he's been working on. And honestly, he's one of the craziest bastards I've ever met, in a way where he actually understands everything about the major vision about what I do, and I understand everything that he does, and pretty much nobody gets it. So what we're going to do today is something that is it's awesome. We're going to actually take you through, here's the outcome, this is how we got there, and then break down every piece of this process, which is going to be the first time anybody's ever done it publicly. It's going to be pretty incredible. Get excited. And so Adem is he's a lot of things. He's a crazy son of a bitch. He's incredibly intelligent. He's lived several lives based off of what he's told me of what he's done, which is incredible. I'm kind of similar to that too. It's weird. And then from there, he's been working in sales for a long time, found out what was broken with it, and created a whole process structure around it to create closed circuit sales and dark prospecting, or promote dark prospecting. It's an incredible thing. So Adem, please, if I didn't do well enough, introduce yourself.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, well, thanks so much for all of our interactions, and thank you for inviting me on the show today. I guess it's hard to figure out the starting point. I joke around on some of the other shows that I'd probably just be this washed up wannabe footballer that didn't really make it. But let's probably unpack that a little bit to how we got these discussions to be talking about things like the dark prospecting and the closed circuit selling, which basically highlights the value that you guys are doing with White Rabbit, and why that's so important in what we've defined as a closed circuit system. But before we get into that, we probably need to unpack what is dark prospecting and how does it work. So basically, at a high level, I was starting to see things on LinkedIn that could identify actions made by a buyer. Even if they're on dark hidden mode, you could then skip across to see those actions from the company. In Sales Navigator, you could see if that company has viewed you. You could click inside of that to see who the stakeholder was. You could click down the bottom of that, get into the insights, and you could check the buyer intent score. So you're thinking, okay, how the hell did you figure that out? So to better understand that, you've got to first understand the great work that Chris Walker's doing at Refine Labs with how he's made a clear definition for the market explanation of what dark social is. So once you understand that, you can then go, okay, it was easy for me to see the visible links of what dark prospecting was. It was dark social in reverse from the buyer intent, which led to your and my conversation around the great work that you guys are doing with buyer pattern personas, which is basically going to make the sales process more predictable, more refined, and have more human to human interaction.
Yeah, it adds the predictive element, so you don't have to sift through all the shit, and it makes it so sales is not a numbers game. It never should have been in the first place.
Yeah.
And the high volume is what's dug us into this mile-wide hole that we're in, and we just keep picking up the shovel in the sense of doubling the emails, doubling cold calls, doubling outreach, double everything. And it's just going to get worse and worse. It's a compounding issue. Now, that's why, and if anybody is happy to use it, hashtag high volume is dead, and put a little skull after it, because it's dead.
Yeah, so I guess that's pretty much the high level introduction of how you and I got really vocal on some of these alignments in terms of understanding. And a lot of people were brought on the journey with that, and are now also following and understanding what we're saying, because inside of this selling system, a large component of that is being able to do what you guys do. So in the past, as you know, or for people that have heard other podcasts that I've been on, I was actually working all this stuff out manually. So I knew, coming from doing business development for the last 20 years, 20 cold phone calls to people that are always going to say no is probably not the best use of my time. Also, the best use of my time probably wouldn't be building lists to call the people that are going to say no in the first place. So a large component of that became, what could we do better? What could we strip away to get the outcome for the customer? And what's the quickest way to make that happen? So the only way that we're able to do that is walk through the process of how could we reverse engineer from the outcome backwards? And the only way you're going to be able to do that is doing things like building those lists that are more personalized, validate and verification of those lists, buyer pattern personas, which is what you guys are doing, and maybe also blended with social index scores of how they like to be met in their buying cycle, with the scores of likeliness of, are they ready to have that discussion? Yes, no. That's going to completely cut down the churn. But as you and I have discussed in the past, a large
and you forgot one piece, which is,
yeah,
are they a fit to resonate and build
yeah,
a relationship with you
yeah,
and will fit to your client base, which also starts bleeding into the recruiting end of it is, are these salespeople even qualified to be selling into this product because of the people we do business with? Are they a fit to those people to work with them, to help solve their problems and to have a discussion with them and to track with them at a human level?
yeah. So I guess extending on what you've just said there, Rob, because that's a brilliant point, is even if we can get all of those things right, that doesn't guarantee that we gave that information or system to a company X could do it, because the problem that we're now facing is the silos of the split out of all those roles have actually changed the nature of the skill sets applicable to be able to furnish the outcome.
That's right.
So,
And that's why RevOps was born and is now becoming more popular, because it's the de-siloing of all
yeah,
revenue operations, from CS to sales to marketing to advertising, the things that are all split up. It's that disconnect that has caused a lot of these issues, or has promoted them in a lot of different ways, where it seems like there is no solution. The key is that everything is working together as a unified system, and all of the data on the people that you're targeting belongs to a unified system that gives you the intrinsic evidence and predictability and insight into like precisely where you're supposed to be going, as far as who to target, who to talk to, when to talk to them, who's most likely to become a customer, who's a fit, and what kind of a conversation should I be having with them. All of these different indicators are what build the pathway to a perfect sales system. Yes, there's no such thing as perfect, but you can get damn near close if you have the data to back it up. Where, we've been making these assumptions where it's been a speculative process, and it doesn't have to be, because the data is all there. It's just that nobody knows what to do with it to make that happen.
yeah. And that's probably leads us into the next challenge. With that is, two things are going to happen. Half of the market are going to realize that we're correct with the selling system, with the intent and the information that you can provide. Half of them are going to also then realize we don't have the people that have the skill set to do that now, because of the beast we've built with all the split out of the natures of these roles. We now need a full cycle service that can stand and deliver at the RevOps part in the chain, which is for post past of what the problem is, right? So if that's the barrier to entry of the level of understanding, half of them are immediately going to say no, because they're going to become protective over their department, because they're going to realize
it becomes an expose. Everybody who's not fit to do the job is immediately surfaced. It's like, you have a bunch of bricks in a bucket. One of them is made of styrofoam, but it's painted as a brick. They all look the same. You put the water in, the brick's going to float. The brick that's styrofoam is going to float right up. So imagine that at a mass scale. That's what's going to happen, and it scares the shit out of people. Also, jobs will change, the job function, the role. Now, SDRs will become more so down the full cycle chain, where it's now going to be a sales assist at this point. The SDR brings them in, reels them in, builds the relationship, and it creates the entire sale pretty much. But then the AE or whoever else it may be, sales engineer, whoever you bring in, solutions architect, yada, yada, becomes the person who is the specialist who assists them with that sale. So it's a two-part system, which has been, there's data to prove that that's more effective anyway. That's been happening, that type of stuff. That is going to become a more effective system to become a full cycle process, because people build a relationship with other people. They buy into you. Like, just like Andy Paul says, I had a podcast with him today, is that they're doing business with you. They want to work with you. That's why they're buying. It's usually not the product. There's 10 other products that look exactly the same to the client, whether they are, they aren't, or you're truly unique or whatever the hell it may be. So what, insert excuse here, doesn't matter. It's that they perceive you as the same as the other things. So that's the way that you're seen, period. There's nothing you could do to talk them out of that, unless you sat down with them and took them through the whole thing, and then they're going to think you're an asshole at that point. Point is that full cycle closed circuit is where everything is going to be headed, because once we find out where it's all going and we know what to do to be able to predict it and speculate on that, then it becomes an entirely different process. So not just only an expose to surface all of the crap and all of the issues with the processes that are happening, it's also going to shift the way that people work, which is scary because it's going to be a huge moment of change. That's why Adam's talking about there will be services that will be able to provide this type of help, to outsource it, to structure it, and to make it happen. And then you can think about picking up where they left off.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly right. And then the really, really savvy people are going to realize if we listen to Adem and Rob, we can also decrease our overheads, increase our revenue, and make us a more viable option if we want to do anything with the company at that point, right? So that will make a huge shift of change. But yeah, to get there, there's obviously the hurdles of we've got to basically unpack and undo all of the silos that we've built, which has caused the problem, which is applicable to the skill sets inside of each silo. So as soon as we can do that, the level of understanding, we'll be on our way.
Over specialization and the lack of cross training, cross divisional training. That's what's causing these issues. When someone is specialized that deep for that long, it's almost like they're incapable of learning the other things or don't accept them. Let's say if it challenges a current thing that they're doing now, like some salespeople and some marketers don't get along because what the marketer does challenges the salesperson's process. The salesperson's process challenges the marketer's process. And then they keep butting heads and they never truly connect. That type of stuff needs to be, it needs to combine. They need to find the best process for both. And that change is going to piss off a lot of people. It's going to piss off a lot of people, period.
Yeah. So look at it from a really simplistic view. I know that everyone that's probably listening to this understands, but look at it like this. So if the SDR modeling is measured on how quick can I get that person to say yes to a meeting, they're going to use whatever tricks they need to use to get them to say yes to the meeting. That doesn't mean that that meeting is going to turn into the demo that's going to turn into the contract that's going to turn into the commercial access. It just means that they've done their part in the cog, so they've got a yes, right? It doesn't mean they're going to get the best outcome in a two-way stream. So what
the current sales process is focused mainly on just ambiguous sales activities. It's about the how many calls, how many meetings. Well, if you're having 100 meetings and only 2 are converting, why the fuck are you having 100 meetings? That's nonsense. I'd rather have them not have the meetings and then 2 people convert and they've only had 10 meetings. Well, it should be done that way. 100 meetings. How do meetings symbolize or indicate any type of success unless it closes?
Yeah. And well, for those that haven't heard the other podcast where I've explained this story, think of it like this. So when I was in the financial sector, I unpacked that process in my head, and I was like, okay, so what are we actually trying to do here, right? We are trying to get the target in front of the proposal that's going to go to contract as quickly as possible, right? But think about how many touches, as you and I know, that's changed from when we would have started. That would have been 1 to 4 touches to get to yes, no. Now it's probably between 17 and 23, right?
Yeah, it's 17 to 18 touches right now.
Yeah. So thinking about
2 years ago, it was 14 to 16, I believe. And then 10 years ago, it was 7 to 9. 10 years before that, it was 3 to 4.
Yeah. So what we're trying to say is, what would we need to do to get to the proposal part of the yes, no in a hyper-personalized fashion with degrees of what is going to help them personally and their business succeed at that moment in time in a proposal that is ready for them to say yes. So the way that I did that and cracked that code was thinking, okay, so if I take my death by PowerPoint presentations in the financial sector from like 2008, 2009, and I make that into a sales copy that flows, I made that into an animated cartoon, and then the cold call becomes this, Rob. Hey, Rob, how you going, mate? Yeah, I know you don't have time to talk to me right now, but what I'd like to do is chuck a video straight across to you about what can help you and your company win right now. Now, if that doesn't make sense after you've viewed it for you to continue, let me know. Now, what actually happened with the swatch test of doing that was 7 out of 8 people had booked the meeting to discuss the contract after viewing the video, which now we can further enhance by doing things like smart links, check the view rate, the download rate, how many times they've watched it, then place that call. But your and my vision of how to do these pattern interrupts at each part of the milestone process can't be utilized because of the silos and the systems that we've built in place. It's causing the problem. So think of it like this. If we went to company X and we're working for that company right now, and we went to marketing and said, hey, Rob and I have got this idea to animate one of our sales copies to make a presentation up front. Can you make it for us? Let me know how that goes, because I can tell you right now, it's not going to go very well.
You are never going to get that video. And if they created it, it would get distributed through marketing channels, not sales.
Correct. So there lies the problem, because what you and I are talking about, it's only going to work if everything is fully integrated as a full cycle service, right? So to do that, you either need to be an external service that comes in like me and you together, or really, really receptive of breaking down all those structures in the past that's causing the problem in the first place. But to do that, they have to have a really big ownership discussion, which I can tell you is not going to happen.
No, it's going to go really, really poorly, and a lot of people are going to get a lot of hurt feelings. There's going to be an HR nightmare, and it's overall just going to be a mess. There's going to be a shift of power, and then a power vacuum gets created, and then people start. It becomes a chaos. It's a zoo.
So the solution is using stuff that what White Rabbit Intel is doing to better aid each part of those milestone mapping processes, milestone pillars, of what pattern disrupts could be used within the traditional structures if outsourcing a full cycle service is off the table. What could I get to help them win right now? And what's the quickest way to make that personalized to get to the end of the table right here? So that's where we need to get to. And that's basically a whole heap of the stuff that you and I have talked about, but we can delve into that further. Because,
well, one thing I wanted to mention is that just imagine, if you will, any company at random, just pick one. First one you think of, doesn't matter who. Go into that company, check out, not you, so the listener, you can do if you want, but you just imagine one company, just pick them out. Doesn't matter what segment, doesn't matter what market, doesn't matter what the fuck they sell, it's irrelevant. What's relevant is that it's a company they chosen at random. Now, you go to the marketing team, you go to the sales team, you go to see who they're targeting. They're going to be two different people. You're going to ask the sales leader something along the lines of, so who's your best customer? Who's your best target? Who are you selling to? Who's actually closing? And then you're going to ask the marketing leader, so who do you think the sales team is closing? Like, what kind of leads are you passing them? Oh, we're passing this, that. There will be a very severe lack of alignment. And I can almost guarantee you that none of the marketing content is usable by the sales team. And the marketing content that's created for the sales team is not used by the sales team, or is seldom used by it, because with who they're trying to align with, provide value to, and drive engagement with marketing often does not align with what the sales team is distributing and what the sales team needs to do their job to get them to buy versus be interested in something. That's the problem, is that intent is not intent. It's actually interest and attention, not intention. It's been mislabeled by a marketer who wanted to sell the shit out of intent data. Right? It's not intent. Intent is not measurable until the outcome already happened. Right? Now, moving into this, you see this company that you've imagined. Now, to get the marketers to agree to create the sales content, and then the salespeople targeting the same people as the marketers, and then having your ad content so granular so that it can get in front of the people that your salespeople are actively targeting in one way with an advertisement, and then also an awareness campaign through advertisement with the people that your sales team are not currently targeting actively, with the marketing team providing content and targeting the people that the salespeople are targeting, where it's not going to contradict or step on any toes to help enable them to sell better. That's the beginning. Now we have the CS team, the sales team working with the CS team to help them out upsell the current clients, because CS people often do not know how to upsell. They're just order takers, and they know how to help support you through an issue that you're having with a whatever system or whatever it may be, service or whatever. Now you have the CS team able to sell, or gets assists from the sales team working together. Then the CS team is also able to tell why they're buying, what they're having trouble with, what they need help with, what they need to learn more of, what they need to be educated with, so that the marketing team can create content for the CS team to help educate the clients to provide more value, so that the sales team can help them upsell them without getting the client pissed off because there is no value add. It seems like you're trying to get more money out of them. That system. Imagine the company that you're either working at or the one that you came up with in your head, and think about what would happen to that business if these things were to align together, because there are very few businesses out there that have achieved this.
Yeah. And there's two parts that I'll break into that even further, Rob, because you've also identified a third variable option. What happens when the marketing and the sales don't even know who their preferred ICP is and they're actually selling to the wrong people?
Oh, yeah. So that gets into what I call sales solutions architecture, which I
Yep.
consider myself an expert in, I'd hope, right? Is that if you're mis-selling people and you're bringing on the wrong clients,
Yep.
you are directly affecting and hurting the engineering team.
Yeah.
Oh, what? The engineering team? What? Oh, yeah. No, directly affecting the engineering team. How? Okay. So the marketing team is bringing in the wrong leads. The wrong leads are going to the salespeople. Salespeople don't know any better because they're a marketing qualified lead. They have a very low close rate, but the people that they're closing are the people that they're closing, right? Those people come in as clients. The CS team is overwhelmed because they're getting constant complaints and they're getting constant issues that are coming up because they close the wrong person for the product. After the wrong person's close to the product, they have an extremely high churn rate. That's causing a lot of problems for the finance department, and it's putting pressure on everybody, mostly the sales team, to sell more of the people who aren't a fit. So you have this fast churn rate. Why are they churning? Because it doesn't have any of the features or the capabilities that the people want that were sold the product. So the engineering team is working their ass off, and the product team is working their ass off trying to build the shit to make those people happy who will never be happy. Then the people who are the best fit that are currently using your product don't see any product improvement that they like or will help them or enable them to be upsold because you're innovating for the wrong demographic.
Yep. And
that's how it connects.
And that exact milestone churn is also the reason the bums in seats at the CS level don't now have the upsell, cross-sell, opportunity spot, RevOps skills anymore, because they're the entry-level people that have just been thrown in the deep end to deal with people that didn't want to work with them anyway. So how can you give those people a chance to succeed if you can't even show them what good looks like?
Yeah, they need to be trained. If you just throw them into a position and say, all right, sink or swim. Do you know how many? Occasionally you'll get someone who does great, but the chances of that are incredibly low. And they think, you know what, this wasn't in the job description, or I didn't know I had to do any of this. There's no guide on how to do this. Even if you hand them a guide, they won't know how to do it. People learn through experience and by example.
And that's why there's a split out for an explosion of the RevOps movement as an outsourced service, because of that exact reason. So they split it into the people in the bums in seats that are doing the order taking, split out half with those that can upsell, cross-sell, opportunity spot as a revenue stream that carry a bag. That's the exact reason that that's happening.
And why do you think people ended up in the whole order taking position? Like, how does that even end up happening?
So what I see happening across APAC, obviously with my accent, that's where I'm from, is the people that traditionally were good at those roles that may existingly come from business development or a commercial management background that ran those departments as a sales department, basically got to the point of their careers where they've moved on and done something else. And the people coming in were the people that were basically in those departments that had never done a sales role before. So they're only interested in processing what's coming in, not going, okay, well, they've actually said this actually means that I've got an opportunity for 3 more sites because of what they've said. They don't even have that within their repertoire of understanding that that's actually happened until someone points it out. And doing that interdepartmentally with these structures and silos right now is like someone running around with hot water deliberately trying to burn someone. It doesn't go over very well. So yeah, there's a lot of room for improvement.
What do you think? Because I don't think I've ever actually asked you this question before. What do you think the rejection, or where do you think the rejection is coming from? Yes, because it could uproot the process. It could change people's habits. Change. They don't like change. It could break down barriers between silos and different departments and all of that. But what do you think the main rejection point is? Where the rejection is not coming from the business because it's what's best for the business.
Yeah,
it's coming from the people. Why are the people rejecting it?
I think it speaks to their understanding of the skill sets applicable to their role, because they're now stuck in, no, we've always done it this way, because that's how they would have done it across all of these countries in the last maybe 5-8 years, maybe. So that's causing this problem, because now they're stuck thinking that they're only process workers. So it's an understanding of what that skill set needs to be versus what they think it needs to be, which is also the same from the business development perspective of who the right buyer and who the right buyer fit is versus what they want it to be, because they're two different things. So it's happening at both ends, right? So we need to fix this.
Yeah, that's a whole lot. So how can we simplify this for people listening? Because we've gone on, and we tend to go down a pathway that it's hard for people to follow because of how many different interconnected pieces there are. I think it would be good for us to probably break this down, or not even break it down, actually put it back together and give kind of like an ordered list of this piece, that piece, that piece, that piece. It's just how it aligns from more of like a lateral perspective.
Yep. Okay. So if we look at it like this, right? So Rob and I are talking about, we're banging on about different things about, we've taken apart all the people in the last 8 years that have said the sales is broken methodology. Now, what that looks like is, number one, content storytelling and meeting the buyers in their market, right? So if you don't get the demand marketing right and the content applicable to educate, you can't do that. So that's number one. Number two, the prospecting is completely changed. Rob and I would agree, all over the world, 70% of the SDR, BDM, whatever that salesperson role is called, is list building, verification, trying to figure out if that is the buyer pattern persona, trying to figure out what they like by social indexing, right?
Yeah, and it's 86% for SaaS specifically.
You've solved that problem in a large portion, but that's just point number two. The next part is the onboarding and activation of the clients after they've said yes, after they've been credit approved. So getting to the Revop CX level, that falls over because gone are the days where it's acceptable for that department to receive an active communication plan of, this is how Rob would like to be interacted with. This is his site accesses. Rob would like pink donuts on Tuesdays and purple flowers on Wednesdays. And these are the people that report to him that also need access to they need a phone call on Monday and they need to be visited on Fridays. That's gone because the skill set applicable to that handover came from the full cycle people that no longer exist, right? So what we're saying at a really high level, if we fix all of these problems, then we can start doing some really cool stuff by using the data that we know, by the list building, the verification, the validation, the buyer pattern persona, and the social indexing to meet them in their market of how they want to be met at the time that's right for them to say yes, in a manner that's going to make it hyper-personalized for them, solving their problems up front, which means you're going to cut down on all of this churn. So the ticket is, how do we get the operational awareness or the organizational awareness that this is actually possible? That's the thing, though, isn't it?
The market validation behind it is nuts. I mean, in theory, it works, and it would work literally. I want to pedal back for a sec to the full cycle's gone. There are some full cycle sales teams left, but the reason it left is because they wanted to make it more like a manufacturing line. It's more efficient. That doesn't mean it's effective. But the problem is that we didn't have the data-driven processes or the technology to be able to make full cycle salespeople scalable. Now we can. So it's time to swap back. So it becomes that hyper-personalized, targeted process that we're talking about here. The other piece of this that you just mentioned at the end of that is that currently the entire structure of everything is not built to support any of this. So the market validation behind it is going to be difficult, which, I mean, we've dealt with this ourselves, and same with you. It's crazy that how rejected it gets. Is that, how do we get the movement to actually take place? It needs to take hold. Until you'll find it, until like the enterprises or a large mid-market or a couple large mid-markets adopt something like this, that it's completely rejected and neglected. It's as simple as, we have a process that makes selling predictable and makes it so there's certainty within your pipeline for extremely accurate forecasting. Is that not something you want? Making change is very important. How do we get the market to change? This is the call to action right here. Is that who else, and who is even people listening to this, do you believe in that? Do you want to drive it? It's going to take a freaking army, everything but the kitchen sink, to get the market to actually shift. and to get the market to start adopting a more wholesome process where instead of taking tiny little pieces at a time and having a super fractured out process that's just freaking jerry-rigged or just Frankenstein together over time always results in disaster and systems that are like irreparable. It
Yeah.
needs to be done all at once as a full transformation where you can do it stepped out, of course, piece by piece, but the whole plan needs to get put in place first before action is taken, not just saying, oh, this will help improve this tiny little piece. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do that. It's not that. It needs to be the whole picture.
Yeah.
It needs to be established and defined and followed to the T to get there, where there's going to be some misalignment. There's going to be some issues along the way. Some a lot of hurdles to get over when the system is out of or displaced like that. But that's the way it's going to have to be done.
Yeah.
That's what I see it, at least. Not necessarily, but
yes. But we can unpack that a little bit more for the listeners that have maybe think that that's still even high level, right? So what we're saying is, if we take the best part of what Aaron Ross did at Predictable Revenue, the best parts of what Sales Tribe did with Graham Hawkins, right? The best parts of Rev Genius, the best parts of Go Nimbly, we blend that with what Stephen Smith did at Tidal, then we've really got some attention, right? Because you've got an end-to-end service delivery that can't fail. However, it has to be accepted by the people that are willing to hear that that's actually possible, which is the barrier to entry. So that's the way that I see it.
Yeah, the barrier to entry is pretty high. And Adam and I recognize this. It's very high. But it's the difference between mediocre, standard, and amazing. And for those of you who think we're absolutely nuts, you're not wrong. But who in this world, in all of history, that has achieved anything of any value or greatness wasn't completely batshit crazy?
Yeah. I think that's probably a good summary, that we're saying that we want to solve all of these problems because we've recognized we could be good at doing each of those things individually, but why would we not want to solve the whole problem?
Trying to solve each of them one at a time is why we're currently in this position.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
It needs to be the whole thing.
Yep.
And you could do it silo by silo. Okay, let's disenfranchise this one, then that one. There we go. But they're all working toward the same goal, and it's on a roadmap to do all of them. Because if you just do one and say, okay, we'll get rid of we'll take care of the other ones later, the whole thing's going to fall apart.
Yeah, and for the listeners, we're not saying that the companies mentioned haven't done amazing things by doing that and taking over the world in their patch. What we're saying is we want to solve that and take that further.
We want to put it all together the way that it should be and was meant to be. Whether back then, when these things were created, nobody knew that they were supposed to be together. It was solving a problem. But now that we have the full gamut,
and the data,
we need to thread it together, because whether they knew it or not at the time, it's just one piece of the whole process that all needs to converge. We finally have it. We just need to do it, and people need to accept it.
Yeah, and if once people are willing to understand that, Rob, their next question is, so you're telling me that you guys working together can actually decrease our operating costs while increasing our revenue exponentially?
Literally, yeah.
That should literally get their attention.
Decrease in operating costs, decrease in cost of sale, decrease in the cost of lead generation, decrease in cost of CS as a result of bringing in the right people, so there's less complaints, there's less issues, there's less support that's needed. Decreasing the cost of, or actually changing the spend when it comes to product and engineering, because it's getting engineered to the people that are a fit to who you're supposed to be selling to. All those things start to fall in place because it's a connected system. Everything is connected. That's the nature of solutions architecture, is that everything is connected. Your whole tech stack should speak to your entire tech stack. Solutions out there that do all the translations and then hold, it's almost like a switching station. That's a translator that updates data in real time across all these different systems that you use, whether it's QuickBooks over to your CRM or whatever else. Syncary. I know the folks who own that company. Fantastic stuff. It's stuff like that that's going to be the saving grace when these changes are being made, without having to have a unicentric system that to exist. Which, I mean, Adam and I have plans for something like that, but the thing is that we need a translator for the time being.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Yeah, I guess for context to the audience that's listening, once we solve this problem, you and I have got ideas of how we can take that further. But for now, we're just saying we want to solve the sales is broken methodology. This is how we believe that this is going to work. This is how we know that we've done it in industries already. And this is why it's going to get a result at a less cost for yourself. So, that's probably at a high level.
Yeah. And I anybody listening to this that agrees with us or wants to help, reach out. We'd be happy to talk to you and have you join the crazy boat, I guess, to make this happen. It's got to happen. It will happen eventually. It's just the question of when and who is going to be the one to do it.
Yeah. We probably couldn't have said it any better ourselves.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, the next segment here is what is the one thing, or not even the one thing. So this is a whole lot. What's the thing that people need to walk away with to either like rethink their life about, rethink their career about, or apply to their business or their career immediately out of everything that we said? It could be multiple things too, but what's your takeaway point?
So I think the determining factor is not mentioning the cost, but if you take away the operational churn, that's going to enhance any business. No one can disagree with that. So you're saying that the data you've looked at is around 84% of that stuff is churn because of the list building, the verification, the validation, the trying to figure out if they're a right fit. I'm saying, yeah, I agree. Between the 75 and the 84% is basically lost productivity cost. What would happen to you and your business if we took that away?
Yeah. I mean, it's massive. You can't even really think about it because of all the different pieces. I mapped this out one time in a, if I could find the diagram, I'll show you. It literally looks like the ramblings of a madman. Mapped it out of how it all connects, and the amount of intertwined connections in a network diagram that it created is absolutely unfreaking real. Like if you deleted your CS team, just got rid of them, the whole thing topples. It's crazy how it affects one another. You take out one tiny little attribute, everything else suffers from it or is affected by it or is improved by it, depending on what you did to it. It's incredible. And people need to start thinking in systems and networks more often than, because silos are the death of us. Systems and networks is how everything functions in nature, literally. And so that's how a business functions. It's an organization, so it functions as an organism. You change something, it adapts. You change something else, it adapts. You hurt it, you damage it in some way, it adapts or it dies.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible stuff. Now, what's the best place for people to reach you or to find your content?
Yeah, well, so disruptorur.co, not OR, is the website. Add me on LinkedIn, Adem Manderovic. Shouldn't be hard to find. Should be the only person with that name, I'd think, especially with that spelling. Hit me up there. But I do have to give a shout out to the man that made all of this momentum start. His name is Johnny Stofko, has a worldwide podcast called Ungoogleable. Check it out. Now, he saw some stuff in me on my podcast of me rambling about some of these closed circuit selling systems from my banking days. He said, dude, you need to talk about this. So that's how some of those tractions started. I've got to give props to Johnny Stofko, Ungoogleable. He's had some of the biggest guests in the world on his podcast. Check it out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I actually checked it out after you showed me. I saw hashtag Ungoogleable. I was like, where have I seen that before? That's amazing. I wish I had that.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, no. So thank you everybody today for listening. Very much appreciate. Yeah, it was a humdinger. That much is true. It was a lot to absorb. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to either myself or Adam on LinkedIn or wherever the heck you can find us. It doesn't matter. We're open to it. But yeah, help make the difference. Help drive the movement and help be the unstoppable force to finally transform every piece and function of the revenue operations process, to de-silo it and make it happen. We want a true RevOps process, and the goal is a closed circuit sales system.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, do your research, look into it. It'll be good for you. And remember, hashtag DTRH podcast. And most importantly, never forget, hashtag high volume is dead. If you enjoyed this episode, follow Down the Rabbit Hole podcast for new episodes weekly on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, and YouTube. If you'd like to apply to be featured on the podcast or recommend a featured guest, please feel free to email us at theteam@whiterabbitintel.com.